No one in the room knew who the tired man with a worn-out resume truly was. No one knew that the single father they laughed at once built the very program the company was trying to acquire. No one cared that he hadn't eaten breakfast so his little daughter could eat hers. They only saw his cheap suit, his trembling hands, and the dark circles under his eyes. They rejected him, coldly, confidently, like he was nothing. But the moment his identity was revealed, every powerful executive suddenly stood up, because they realized they had just insulted the man who could save their dying company. And worst of all, they had tried to humiliate a father who would burn the world for his child. This is the story of a man who lost everything, was rejected by everyone, but rose again, not for glory, not for revenge, but for love. No one expected a single father to show up at a CEO-level interview in a wrinkled shirt. But David Hale didn't have a choice. He stood outside the towering steel building with his daughter's tiny fingers holding his sleeve. 5-year-old Lily looked up with wide, trusting eyes, the kind that believed her father could fix the universe. "Daddy, will you get the job this time?" she asked softly. He forced a hopeful smile. "I'll try, baby. I always try." He had been rejected 7 times this month. But rent was due, groceries were running out, and Lily's school had sent yet another notice about overdue fees. He sold his last gold watch just to purchase enough fuel to make it here. Inside the lobby, executives and candidates stared, first at David, then at the small girl he was carrying. Their polished suits contrasted sharply with his coat that was a size too big, bought from a thrift store. "Sir, children aren't allowed upstairs," the receptionist said politely, but firmly. "She'll just sit quietly beside me. I couldn't get a babysitter today." The receptionist hesitated. Something in David's eyes, not pride, but exhaustion, made her swallow the rules. She nodded and printed his pass. Upstairs, the interview room felt colder. The CEO, Victoria Kane, looked like power sculpted into a woman, flawless hair, flawless confidence, flawless disdain. Next to her sat 2 board members and a director who practically rolled his eyes when David entered with Lily. Victoria didn't bother hiding her judgment. "You're here for the senior software director role? With a child?" David nodded, clearing his dry throat. I'm a single dad. Her mother passed away last year." One of the directors exhaled, annoyed. "We're running a global tech corporation, not a daycare." David felt Lily grip his arm tighter but tried to stay calm. "I understand. All I ask is the chance to prove myself." Victoria folded her arms. "Your resume shows a 5-year gap." He swallowed. "My wife had cancer. I left my position to take care of her, until the very end. After she passed, I needed time to help Lily adjust." Nobody softened. Not an inch. "What did you do before that?" the director asked, unimpressed. David controlled his voice. "I worked in AI analytics and systems security architecture." The room fell silent for a second, but then the CEO shrugged. "That's vague. And outdated. Technology has evolved far beyond whatever you were doing 6 years ago." David opened the portfolio he spent days preparing, diagrams, codes, system strategies written by hand because he couldn't afford high-quality printing. The executives barely glanced at it. "So you're telling me," Victoria said slowly, "that a man who can't afford a babysitter wants to handle a department worth $60 million? A couple of them smirked. His face burned. His throat tightened. But he kept his dignity. "I'm asking for a fair interview. I'm not here for pity. I'm here to work. To rebuild." She leaned forward, voice sharp as a blade. "Mr. Hale, we need leaders, not charity cases. This is a fortune-level table. You don't belong at it." The words stabbed deeper than she knew. David closed his folder. He stood up, gently lifted Lily in his arm. "Thank you for your time," he said quietly. He walked out slowly so his daughter wouldn't sense his humiliation. He didn't cry. Not yet. On the elevator ride down, Lily rested her head on his shoulder. "You were brave, Daddy," she whispered. David finally let a tear fall, just one. Because bravery felt like failure. What he didn't know was that fate was about to flip the earth beneath their feet. Minutes after David left, an argument erupted in the conference room. The youngest board member, Ethan Cross, tapped furiously on his tablet. "Victoria, did you even look at his full name?" She frowned. "Yes. David Hale. A nobody." Ethan's voice shook. "Not a nobody. The David Hale." Victoria scoffed. "Who?" Ethan turned the tablet so she could see. On the screen was a news headline from years ago. "Prodigy programmer David Hale designs groundbreaking AI system that changes global security." Victoria's eyes widened. Ethan continued. "He built the original HaleGuard architecture, the security system our company has been trying to buy for 5 years. The man we just threw out is the one who created the technology we can't duplicate." A stunned silence spread through the room. A board director whispered, "You mean the guy who disappeared after his wife got sick?" Ethan nodded. "His wife was a scientist, won awards. When she died, David walked away from everything. But his genius, his patents, are still unmatched." Victoria felt her pulse spike. "Get him back. Now." Downstairs, David was tying Lily's jacket when 4 security officers approached. "Sir, the board is requesting your presence immediately." David tensed, humiliated all over again. "I'm not going back up there. I'm done begging." The officers looked surprised. One spoke gently. "Sir, they realized who you are." David frowned. "I told them who I was." "No, sir," the guard replied. "They just realized what you are." He didn't understand, until he returned to the conference floor. This time the board stood when he entered. Executives who couldn't spare him a glance now waited nervously. Victoria, pale with embarrassment, spoke carefully. "Mr. Hale, we apologize for the misunderstanding." David stared. "A misunderstanding? You didn't ask a single question about my work." She inhaled slowly. "We know who you are now. And we'd like to discuss an offer. Whatever position you want, you can name it." David set Lily down and held her hand. His voice was steady. "So now I'm worthy? Because you searched my name online?" No one answered. He looked at Lily, then back at them. 5 minutes ago, I was a charity case to you. The only difference between then and now is your ego. I don't want a job where my value depends on recognition." Ethan stepped forward. "David, listen. The industry needs you. We need you. Millions of users need your mind to protect them." David looked toward the window, the city skyline glowing with possibility. His heart beat faster. He didn't want revenge. He wanted purpose. He wanted Lily to have a future. After a long silence, he said, "I won't work under people who judge struggle as weakness. If you want me, I lead on my terms. I build my own team. Family first culture. Compassion first leadership. No exceptions." Victoria blinked. "That's extreme." "For you," David replied. "For me, it's survival." Lily squeezed his hand. Pride filled his chest. The board whispered among themselves. Then Ethan turned back. "We agree." Victoria looked forced, cornered, but she nodded. David breathed deeply. He wasn't just hired. He was reborn. A single father walked out of the ashes, not because he was a genius, but because he dared to demand respect. Not for himself. For the daughter who believed he was unstoppable. David did not walk into that boardroom like a defeated man anymore. His shoulders were straight, his jaw steady, and his daughter's small hand wrapped around his fingers like a seal of courage. The same executives who once smirked now watched him like he was oxygen in a burning room. Ethan was the first to speak again. David, when we were mocking you, you stayed civil. You still thanked us. Why? David looked around slowly. Because I promised a dying woman I would raise our daughter with dignity. Anger is easy. Restraint is strength. Victoria lowered her eyes. Guilt was a new language for her, she was only now learning it. David continued. You judged my clothes, my resume gap, my daughter. You assumed poverty meant incompetence. But behind every tired parent is a battlefield you know nothing about. The board was silent now, no arrogance left. Then David inhaled deeply. I will take this contract, but not for your company. I take it for my daughter. I take it so she never feels small in front of anyone. Lily tugged his sleeve. Daddy, can we get ice cream if you're the boss now? It broke the room. Several people smiled. Someone laughed through their nose. Even Victoria's face softened, not out of superiority, but surrender to reality. But David's conditions were non-negotiable. I want creative control. My schedule stays flexible. I leave by 5. If my daughter has a school event, I'm there. I hire who I want, especially parents others overlook. Ethan nodded instantly. Yes. Done. But everyone looked to Victoria, because she was the ego in the room. Her voice came slow, but steady. You're asking to change the foundation of corporate culture. David responded without blinking. I'm asking you to become human. Those words struck her like blunt truth. Victoria remembered something she never told anyone. She was raised by a single mother. She knew the struggle. She just buried it under 6-figure salaries and awards. Her face finally dropped its armor. Mr. Hale. You're right. I was unfair. You deserved curiosity at minimum. You deserved respect. It was the closest thing she had ever said to an apology. David nodded once. Not in ego, in closure. And just like that, a single father rewrote the rules of leadership. Weeks passed. David turned a sterile corporate floor into a breathing work culture. He hired mothers who were rejected for gaps. He hired fathers who needed flexible shifts. He hired young coders who came from nothing but talent. He built a department where burnout was not a trophy, where empathy was policy. Lily would sometimes sit in his office with crayons, drawing flowers on sticky notes, and placing them on monitors. Employees didn't see it as unprofessional. They saw hope taped to their screens. One afternoon, Victoria stood outside David's glass office, watching him read code with one hand and brush Lily's hair with the other. For the first time, she didn't see weakness. She saw balance. She entered quietly. David, we're projecting the new AI security launch to triple our valuation. He nodded gently. Good. You never asked about stock shares, she said, puzzled. David smiled faintly. I'm too busy protecting my most valuable asset. Your technology? She asked. He turned toward Lily, asleep on the couch. My child. Victoria's throat tightened. She envied a love she never received, and maybe never gave. She whispered. You weren't the man we rejected. You were the lesson we needed. David looked at her, not as a rival, but as someone who finally understood. Months later, David and Lily walked out of the same building where humiliation once crushed his pride. This time, he walked out as head of global security, equity holder, strategy architect, culture reformer. Lily skipped beside him with her backpack bouncing. Daddy, are we rich now? David laughed. We're safe now. That matters more. As they reached the parking lot, Lily spoke again. I'm proud of you. He paused. Because parents say that to children, not the other way around. He kneeled in front of her. No. I'm proud of us. You held my hand through interviews, through sadness, through Mommy being gone. You're my strength, Lily, not my distraction. She wrapped her arms around his neck. I love you more than ice cream. He laughed through a cracked voice. That's impossible. They drove away, not toward wealth or revenge, but toward healing. The world never apologized for judging him. Life never promised fairness. But he carved dignity out of pain, and taught empathy to a corporation built on ego. A single father didn't just get a job. He changed an empire. To every parent fighting invisible battles. To every worker judged for struggle. To every dreamer told they are not enough. Remember this. The world only recognizes value after it sees results. But you must recognize your worth long before that. Pain is not incompetence. Struggle is not shame. Parenthood is not a flaw. And dignity is non-negotiable. You don't fight to prove them wrong. You fight to stay right for the ones who love you. Because sometimes the strongest person in the boardroom is the tired parent who refuses to quit. The story ends here. But your rise does not.